Hi there, everybody. We're here with some storm action today. Um, I'm calling this the imperfect storm because there are some cosmetic changes that I did not have the tickets to make that would actually make this deck much better. We're talking percentage points, but percentage points matter. But yeah, so we're playing a storm deck. The Dark Ritual Pillar of Vintage. And this deck is really a lot of fun. There are so many decisions to make. There are so many branches that you can go down. This is one of the reasons that I love Vintage. Yes, this deck is capable of producing turn 1 wins, but the games where you win on like turn 7 or 8 are just so interesting. There's so many different things going on. And that's why I wanted to build this deck and play it and record it for you guys so that you would get to see some of the really sweet things you can do with Storm in Vintage. We played this deck in a daily event, and yeah, after the deck tech, we'll go right into the rounds, but let's talk about what we've got. We're going to start over here in the lands. We've got a Tolarian Academy, which is very good with these 8 guys over here. This land produces some really busted starts, and really it closes the door when you can play it on turn 4 or 5 with a few artifacts in play. We've got a pair of basic islands, basic swamps, and then 3 underground sea. We're just a 2-color deck. We don't need to mess around with anything else. And we are Wasteland resistant. We're not Wasteland proof, but we are resistant, which is very important because Workshop decks are our worst matchup by far. And then we've got 5 fetch lands. Now here's one of the minor cosmetic things that need to be addressed with this deck. These 4 Misty Rainforests should really be 4 polluted deltas. We have to naturally draw our swamps because we only have 1 Bloodstained Mire. And if you're not going to play polluted delta, they should be Bloodstained Mire, something that can fetch black lands. And really, this second island should probably be a second Bloodstained Mire. Or one of these underground seas should be a second Bloodstained Mire. So that's those are the cosmetic changes for the main deck. And then there's a pretty big one in the sideboard as well. But we've got all these lands. We're running a bunch of fetch lands, so we're resistant to Wasteland. Strip Mine still gets us. And then we've got our 8 free artifact mana accelerants. And then we have another 7 accelerants that we do have to pay for. So altogether, I believe we have 28 mana sources. There's 13 and 7 and then 8, yeah. So 28 mana sources in our deck. That's more than like the control decks, but we've got a lot of fast mana and explosive starts. That's how we get the mana to win the game. And then we've got our deck manipulation cards over here. And basically these let us get through our deck, find the cards that we need to actually win the game. We've got Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor, and Mystical Tutor, a Time Walk, which I count as deck manipulation, and then Preordain, Ponder, Brainstorm, Ancestral Recall. Just the best blue cards that you can play at 1 mana. So coupled with this is more than half of our deck. And then we have our Disruption over here. Mental Misstep, and then 4 Force of Will, 4 Duress, 1 Chain of Vapor, and 1 Hurkyl's Recall. Now, Hurkyl's Recall is really important because we really are just a terrible matchup versus Workshops. So it's important to have this as an out. If we can play this on turn 4 or 3, we can we can easily set up the win the next turn because they don't play much disruption other than their artifact disruption. And then Chain of Vapor, this gets rid of Blightsteel Colossus. It gets rid of a singular thorn or sphere and can allow you to win the next turn. This is also our only way to break up an assembled Vault Key combo. Yeah, you would just wait for them to tap the Time Vault to take another turn, and then bounce it back to their hand, so that they will not indeed get to take another turn, and they might even be tapped out, allowing you to duress or counterspell it on the way back down. This Mental Misstep was in the list that I was given. After playing the deck, about a dozen times, including the daily event, I don't think I want the Mental Misstep in here. I think I would rather have a second Preordain, because I felt as though the deck were just a slight action light while I was playing it. And one card could be all the difference. So, this is how we ramp up to our combo wins. This is how we find our combo wins. This is how we protect it. Our wins are over here. We've got the Tinker package. Basically, if you draw any one of these cards, it's a 2-card combo to win the game. Tinker can assemble the other half of Time Vault and Voltaic Key, and Blightsteel Colossus, can be tutored out of the deck and attack the next turn for the win. An important thing to note, when you are tinkering, if you have the ability to play Time Vault, let's say you have Tinker in your hand, and you cast a tutor, it's more correct to tutor for a Time Vault, and then try to tinker out Voltaic Key, because you can't Mental Misstep Tinker, but you can Mental Misstep Voltaic Key. And that's an important thing, because Misstep is a 2 to 3 of in almost all of the blue decks. So that's an important piece of technology to remember. Over here we have our Storm-related wins. Yawgmoth's Will is one of the best cards ever. Even with I don't want to say skimpy graveyard, but just a small graveyard of maybe 1 draw spell, 1 tutor, and 1 ritual, that's a win right there. It allows you to create the necessary storm to tendril someone at full life, or play Mind's Desire and flip over, 8 or 9 cards. And besides that, it allows you to assemble Voltaic Key and Time Vault very easily, especially with all of the duress action we've got in our deck. Duress being in here is super good. It does slow the deck down very slightly, Duress and Force of Will. We could play a much more explosive deck with Wheel of Fortune and Mox Opal and other cards, but I really like how consistent this version of the deck is with the 4 Duress and the 4 Force of Will. So yeah, and then Mind's Desire for even like 6 or 7. I'm pretty sure in the videos, I am recording this after the daily event. I'm pretty sure that in the videos, I Mind's Desire for, I think, 5, and it's enough to win the game. And then another time, I think I Mind's Desired for 4 or 6, and it wasn't. So take it with a grain of salt, but usually anything over 7 is a game win with Mind's Desire. And then we have our engine cards. I'm going to count Time Twister and Memory Jar in the engine cards, because they do allow you to draw 7, and that's just fantastic. You've got so much action, especially if this is turn 3 or 4. Just so much action. We have Necropotence and Yawgmoth's Bargain, which Yawgmoth's Bargain is an auto win. I don't think it's possible to resolve this card and not win that turn, unless your life total is pressured. Necropotence, on the other hand, I found that what you want to do is probably fill up for 10 cards, and then if you've got the win, great. If you don't, you just want to play out a couple of mana sources and necro up like 2 or 3 cards every turn until you do assemble the win. And then we've got the 2 Jaces. And they're not quite engine cards. I mean, they're pretty slow, and they don't just put you in a winning position. But what they do, yeah, ha 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 ha. No one is too old for toilet humor. What they allow you to do, though, is plan out your game for the next few turns, hide your win conditions from discard, draw into counter spells, or if you could even just start blanking their draw spells. Jace also is a win condition with Voltaic Key and Time Vault. Maybe Blightsteel got killed, who knows? Maybe you can't storm them out. But Jace will do it. You just keep going and he'll do it. And yeah, that's the deck. So a little bit of acknowledgments as to the numbers of things and how they pertain to the deck. We have 13 land with 5 fetches. If you draw a fetch-heavy hand, say you draw a hand with 2 fetches, you are down to just 9 lands in your deck after the first 2 turns, which is huge, because it may be a small percentage point, but you are not going to draw a land. Instead, you're going to draw one of these Moxen, one of these costed artifacts, or a burst. And this really helps you be as consistent as you are. Usually decks have to play more land, but because we have 8 free spells, and then 2 other free sources of mana, and then 5 bursts, 6 bursts if you count the Lotus Petal, you're able to just do a lot. And one of our lands is a blank without artifacts, so that's telling. Dark Ritual, it allows you to do dumb things like, turn 1 Petal, Ritual, land, Ancestral Recall, and then Yawgmoth's Will the recall, and possibly win that turn. Or turn 1 Necropotence. Or turn 2 or 3 Yawgmoth's Bargain. It's just super good at what it does. What else? There's no Imperial Seal in this list. And I don't know if that's a mistake, an oversight, or calculated knowledge. But maybe Metal Misstep should be an Imperial Seal. Or it could be the second Preordain. I don't know. Maybe Preordain was the Imperial Seal slot. I'm not too sure. Duress is really good against blue decks. And it's really good on the draw against shop decks. Sometimes a shop deck will keep a hand with just 1 piece of disruption. Or you have a Duress and a Force of Will. So that's pretty good. I like it. But against the blue decks, this allows you to play a much longer game. I typically like to Duress on turn 1 to see what my opponent is playing over any other option. Especially game 1. Now, if it's like a Dredge deck, I shouldn't have Duress in my deck at all, but if it's a deck that I wouldn't want to lead with Duress, then I would consider leading with one of my deck manipulation spells. And I think that does it. I think I covered everything. Let's go on down to the sideboard. So here's our sideboard, and here is where the second, maybe third cosmetic change is. This second rebuild should really be a second Hurkyl's Recall. Unfortunately, Hurkyl's Recalls are 60 tickets, and that would have doubled my budget that I had allotted to myself. So the second Hurkyl's is out for a little while. But this is our anti-shop build, or package. And what we do with this package is we sideboard out the 4 Dark Rituals and the Cabal Ritual, and we sideboard in all these cards. And what we're trying to do... Oh, and we sideboard out the Mental Misstep for 1 Thoughtseize. And what we're trying to do with this build, after board, is we're just trying to play a really bad control deck. We still have the ability to win on turn 1. And I'm not sure if it's correct to leave the rituals in if you are on the play. I feel like it might have been. In my match against Shops, I considered it, but ultimately did not pursue that. But that could be correct. If anyone knows, it would be great of you to leave it in the comments. That would be fantastic. But that's our anti-shop package. And then we have 8 cards for Dredge. And this is too many. This is far too many. We are a very fast deck. If we sideboarded 4 cards in space of the 4 duresses, we would be just fine. Our deck is perfectly capable of winning on turn 1 through a Cabal Ritual, and we can mulligan to find that. So this is way too many cards. I think maybe another anti-shop card would be pretty good, and maybe a Helm of Obedience to sideboard in with the ley lines against the Dredge decks. I really like my blue sideboard. My blue sideboard is 2 Thoughtseize, and it sounds ridiculous, but all I do is take out Hurkyl's Recall and Cabal Ritual. Boom, done. It's really elegant. It keeps the deck at peak, what's the word I want to say? Efficiency. So we're already sideboarded against blue decks. This is like almost the best version we can run against them. The Hurkyl's Recall is a concession, and Cabal Ritual is just the weakest card after Hurkyl's Recall, in my opinion. This could easily be cut for something else, but then it would make my sideboarding decision a little bit tougher. And that's the deck. There you go. I guess that if I were playing against a deck that was heavy on artifacts and also blue, I might sideboard in a Steel Sabotage. But I think that's pretty much it. And where are we going? I feel like maybe we want some kind of creature protection. Probably the best card is Toxic Deluge, but they're sitting at about 24 right now. And although I do want one, I'm going to hold off and wait until I have some more reserves to blow a whole article on a Toxic Deluge. And something I didn't mention about Hurkyl's Recall, or at least I don't think I did, because I do tend to ramble on in these videos, is that it's not completely dead if you're not playing against workshops. What this does is it adds X Storm to your storm count, where X is the amount of zero-cost artifacts you have. So let's say you have 4 artifacts in play, Hurkyl's Recall becomes 5 Storm, and 4 mana. It is very good in that regard as well. But yeah, that's it for the deck tech, and I will see you guys in the daily event. Have a good one.